For KP's Video News. KP's Video News.
That's right, it's time for KP's Video News. And I'm coming to you with the real. Here we go. Black woman faces prison for a voting mistake. Prosecutors doubled the charges. A North Carolina prosecutor accused of using a racial law to prosecute an African-American woman for voter fraud has now doubled down on the charges against her. The case involves Lanisha Bratcher, a 32-year-old woman who voted in 2016 while on probation for felony assault charges. North Carolina prohibits those on felony probation from voting. And Bratcher says she had no idea she was ineligible to vote. But the district attorney in Hope County, where Bratcher voted, decided to charge her with a Class 1 felony for voting while serving a criminal sentence. She faced up to 19 months in prison. The case has been pending since last year, and Bratcher has since begun working at a beauty store and expecting her third child in December. But in early June, the district attorney's office brought new charges against Bratcher. Prosecutors told her attorney they intended to dismiss the original charge against her, but provided two new grand jury indictments against Bratcher under a different provision of the same law that makes it a felony to knowingly swear a false statement in an election. And so, you know, this is a black woman. She faces prison because of a Jim Crow era plan to protect white voters. It's a small tweak that allowed the district attorney to double the charges against Bratcher, who was arrested last year but is out on bond. She was initially just charged with the single felony of illegal voting, but because Bratcher swore she was eligible to vote on both her voter registration and early voting form, the district attorney is now pursuing charges on 2 felony counts. She now faces a maximum of 19 months in prison for each count, her attorney said, though a judge could sentence her to less or probation if she is convicted. It feels like in some ways she's being punished or targeted for fighting back. She's certainly upset this is still going on. She is trying to move on with her life. The original decision to bring voter fraud charges against Bratcher and 3 other African-American people in Hope County was unusual. Prosecutors across the state chose not to punish many cases of illegal voting in 2016. A Guardian review of the state data last year found, and nearly a year before she was charged, investigators from the State Board of Elections wrote a letter to Hope County District Attorney Christy Newton saying that many felons are not told about restrictions on voting that it was possible Bratcher and 3 others just made a mistake, according to documents obtained. The investigators told the prosecutor that they did not have the resources to investigate the circumstances on Bratcher's case. Newton, the district attorney, chose to bring the charges anyway. After the charges were announced, mugshots of Bratcher and the other defendants appeared on the local news. One of the 3 other men has since pleaded guilty, and the charges against the 2 other defendants were still pending. Corella disputed the original charge by arguing that the law prohibiting those with felony convictions from voting was unconstitutional and racist. In a court filing, he noted that North Carolina's felon disenfranchisement statute dates back to the late 19th century, when white lawmakers used it openly as a tool to disenfranchise African Americans and diminish their political power after the Civil War. The North Carolina Democratic Handbook from 1898 speaks of rescuing the white people from of the East from Negro domination. In 1903, the state's governor said the solution to the Negro problem was to disenfranchise them. Since the 19th century, North Carolina lawmakers have adjusted the law, but its core practice of disenfranchising all felons until they finish their sentence remains intact. Of the 441 people with felony convictions the state suspected of voting in 2016, 68% were black at the end of 2016, African Americans made up 46% of the 52,000 people on parole or probation, and 22% of registered voters in that state. So, you know, this situation, man, is basically to try to silence the argument and increase the punishments and just move ahead with this. Just is really kind of stunning, and that's what's happening right now. So the new charges against Bratcher were brought amid protests across the country focused on systematic racism after the death of George Floyd. And Floyd was born in Hope County. And the district attorney secured the new changes against Bratcher just 2 days after his family, some of whom still live in North Carolina, held a memorial service there. Wow, that's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence at all. That's retaliation. That's what that is. And GHISLAINE Maxwell hired Jacob Wall as a lobbyist the day after she was arrested. Wow. Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend and alleged groomer, GHISLAINE Maxwell, appears to have hired conservative activist and would-be smear artist Jacob Wall for unknown reasons, according to a lobbying disclosure form filed with the United States Congress. According to the LD1 disclosure form filed with the clerk of the House of Representatives and the Secretary of the Senate, J.M. Berkman and Associates, a lobbying firm owned by the far-right activist Jack Berkman and co-run by Wall, were hired by Granite Realty in order to lobby on issues related to the U.S. Department of Justice, Senate Judiciary, and the House Judiciary. The form lists Berkman and Wall as lobbyists of record. The description on the form reads, equal terms, expansive, vague, and however, it is a far cry from previous reporting on the alleged Maxwell-Wall relationship. This filing would appear to corroborate a Tuesday morning story published by the United Kingdom tabloid, which said that Wall and Berkman were paid $25,000 by Maxwell in an effort to intimidate New York prosecutors and tar Epstein's victims. For that report, as part of the $25,000 deal made in June, Wall and his lobbyist colleagues, Jack Berkman, also allegedly pushed to get New York U.S. Attorney Geoffrey Berman, who had led Epstein's case, fired in order to stall or stop the criminal investigation into Maxwell. Her company, Granite Realty, hired them to first get rid of the U.S. Attorney, Geoffrey Berman. Paralegal Christian Spearman told the London-based outlet she wanted him fired, and then I guess she assumed the charges would also go away, or maybe she wouldn't be prosecuted. I think that was the goal. To be clear, Maxwell's alleged shell company is Granite Realty, as in the quality of the state of being real. However, the official form on file with the Congress lists the company name named Granite Realty. The LD1 does, however, list the address of both Boston companies that the federal prosecutors have tied to Maxwell. In other words, the lobbying form has the address of Maxwell said to be affiliated company, Granite Maxwell Realty, and it appears the name of the company is simply misspelled on the congressional documents. So one says reality and the other one says realty. In particular, the defendant has effectively been in hiding for approximately a year since an indictment against Epstein was unsealed in late July 2019. Thereafter, the defendant, who has previously made many public appearances, stopped appearing in public entirety, instead hiding out in locations in New England. Moreover, it appears that she made intentional efforts to avoid detection, including moving locations at least twice, switching her primary role and phone number and email address, and ordering packages for delivery with a different person listed on the shipping label. Most recently, the defendant appears to have been hiding on a 156-acre property in an all-cash purchase in December. in Bradford, New Hampshire, the area which she has no other known connections. Notably, however, the effective date of representation of the lobbying disclosure form is July 3rd, and that was the day after Maxwell was taken into custody under disputed circumstances. Mighty mysterious. Now she's trying to buy her way out by buying her way out through the through lobbying the political Republicans in D.C. So here we go, and we had a FBI arrest the House Speaker. That's right, the FBI arrests the Ohio House Speaker and several political heavy hitters on a $60 million racketeering scheme. Ohio Speaker of the House. Yep. Yeah, they got him. They got him, boy. So let's see here. Ohio Speaker of the House, Larry Householder, and 4 other highly influential political figures were arrested by federal authorities in connection with a public corruption racketeering conspiracy involving $60 million. According to the reports, agents from the FBI and deputies with the Perry County Sheriff's Department stormed Householder's farm in Glenford early Tuesday morning. The investigation stems from Ohio House Bill 6, which bailed out 2 of the state's nuclear power plants at over $1 billion. Householder, one of the most influential politicians in the state, who is currently serving his second stint as House Speaker, was influential in getting those House Bill 6 signed into law last month. A source close to the investigation confirmed that former Ohio Republican Party Chairman Matt Borges, high-profile Columbus lobbyist and founder of Grant Street Consultants Neil Clark, Columbus political consultant and Householder's advisor Jeff Longstretch, and Columbus lobbyist Juan Cespedes were also in federal custody. House Bill 6 required consumers to pay surcharges on their monthly electric bills, ranging from 85 cents for residential customers to $2,400 a month for big industrial factories, beginning in 2021, to fuel a $170 million a year fund. Of that, $20 million a year would go to 5 utility-scale solar fields already holding stateside approval in Southern Ohio, but 88% would go to First Energy Corp, or whomever the plant's owner is once the company emerges from bankruptcy. All 5 men were scheduled to appear via video conference before a federal magistrate. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio and federal special agent in charge, Chris Hoffman, are scheduled to brief the press and about the charges. Tuesday's raid is not the first time Householder has been entwined in a federal investigation. The FBI in 2004 launched a probe into Householder, then in his first tenure as House Speaker, after receiving an anonymous tip that he and his aides received kickbacks from various vendors and traded political favors in exchange for campaign contributions. The investigation ended in 2006. So, telling you, boys, a bunch of crooked people out there. That's Republican, Ohio Republican, Larry Householder, and 4 other highly influential political figures arrested by the FBI in connection with the public corruption racketeering conspiracy. $60 million. That's right. Lock them up.
It's KP's Video News, y'all.
Lock them up.
Video News, y'all.
Lock them up, I tell ya.